Hello and welcome to another UTS Startups Confessions. Fantastic. So we have a full house here in the UTS Startup space, and every single week on the busiest corner in Sydney, we interview one of our startups community. So please join me in welcoming Steve Hantos from Tensis. Thank you. Hey, hello to everyone who's watching this later or on stream. So we'll be doing Q&A here. And then in a little bit, we will turn off the cameras so that everyone in person can ask the juicy, unrecorded Q&A. So if you've got questions, please feel free to bring them forwards in a little bit. And for people online, come on in every single Friday. So, Steve, so in 10 seconds or less, can you tell us what is Tensis? And then we'll go into a bit of the background of you and then the business.
Great. Tensis is a software company that automates the production of very complex documents, legal contracts, financial plans, insurance documentation, etc.
So all of those fancy things, and they all sound that the legalness of it. I'm just going to bring the words out of my mouth here.
Sure.
Like it's quite significant, right? So it needs to be quite accurate, quite detailed.
Accuracy is definitely the key. So we love high-stake data, the really critical data that if you get it wrong, bad stuff happens.
Okay.
So we focus on the legalness, as you said, and making sure that the output is 100% guaranteed each time.
Perfect. So we'll hear about that in a little bit, but before we do that, I'd love to start with where did the entrepreneurial streak start for you personally?
How far back do you want to go?
Let's go to the start. Like, what did that look like?
I've been entrepreneurial as long as I can remember. I started my first business when I was 9, had my first employee at 10.
Okay, hold. What was the like? How did you? So you've been negotiating complex contracts from quite an early. What were those jobs like as an 8-year-old or as a 9-year-old or 10-year-old? Yeah.
Lawn mowing, true blue lawn mowing. Don't tell anyone, but I didn't know anything about insurance or tax, so it was perfect.
Okay.
It started on the basics, on the tools, and then realised that it was much better to go around and do the quoting and win the work rather than actually doing the hard work yourself.
Wonderful. And like year 9 and 10, I don't quite remember the ages, but that's primary school, right?
Absolutely.
That's primary school, and then how did that go through school and onwards? What did that look like?
Sure, continued that business for a while. Then school I attended but did terribly at. Failed school miserably, finished there, got straight back into business.
Yep.
And from there had a few businesses, some successful, some not. And I guess it was about identifying opportunities as I saw them and then grabbing hold of those opportunities and seeing where it took me.
Wonderful. And so that was a couple of years ago. In terms of like jumping into the large scale businesses and doing this, like what was the prep? Did you jump straight in, or what set you up to even begin to start Tensis? What did that look like?
Wow, okay. Well, the previous business, I sold a cleaning business, Complex Solutions, back in 2018.
Okay.
And I built that up over around 19 years. In the latter years, so probably 2015 onwards, I had a general manager who was doing a better job than me at running the business, and so I'd almost made myself redundant in the job. Started playing around with a few small projects on the side, building some e-commerce sites and some online communities and things, just trying something new. Then I sold that business and had a sabbatical for a few years, and was really just focused during that time. I've been investing in startups for about 10 years now, and during that sabbatical I was just doing some mentoring and advisory work for some of the portfolio companies and just others that came along.
Yeah, and we were talking before we went live, and one of the things I mentioned was like I don't often see people who have a large exit just kind of sit and do nothing, right? So from what you were saying, you were getting involved and you're doing some things with the companies. But when you left that business, or when you exited that business and you had the payout, what can you cast your mind back? Like, what types of things were going through your head as you've just had this big win? Or actually, can you tell us what was that like in that moment as you were just kind of looking forwards from there?
Yeah, sure. I guess again, opportunity. You have a windfall like that and world's your oyster, or so you think. You can achieve anything, you can do anything and take on anything you like. Doesn't always work out that way and situations come along, but certainly does bring forth a lot of opportunity.
Yeah, and so AI, and you were mentioning that Tensis is very much in that AI space. It's incredibly popular at the moment. Everyone's wanting to find the angle. How early did you jump in? Like, how did you start to kind of realize that this was a space that you wanted to play in?
Sure. It was back in May 22. I was in San Francisco in Silicon Valley with a few that I co-invest with and one of my co-founders in Tensis. And we're meeting with VCs and startups over there and scale-ups and also some of the tech giants. And back then, May 22, it was evident that AI was coming. There was a real buzz around the valley that the next big thing was about to hit, and people were back then already talking about it as being as big as the internet. So from then we started looking at industries that would benefit the most from artificial intelligence, and we were looking at those really labour-consuming or labour-reliant industries where there was a lot of paperwork, a lot of drafting, a lot of accounting. And then fine-tuned it to that high-stake data that we play in now.
Perfect. So, would you say that the hype train is over? It's just beginning, just starting. Where's everything at sitting? And then, as you're starting to play in that space, like what does Tensis look like today after 2 and a bit years?
Sure. First part. I think the hype cycle has peaked. I think the excitement has started to plateau and the industry is maturing. Early on, money was getting thrown at any startup that had AI in the name. You could increase your valuation twofold just by having a .ai domain name rather than a .com. Those days are past, and I think the venture world are looking at it more maturely. They're not just looking for startups that are solely AI, or they're not looking at a wrapper that's been put over one of the LLMs and put on a certain...
Just AI for this and that you see everywhere, yeah.
Looking for really solid and credible use cases that are going to be around for the long term.
And one of the, just like on that, with so many people creating those kinds of solutions, that trust is often one of the critical pieces. How do you solve for proving reliability?
Sure. We don't rely on artificial intelligence for the output of the data, so we can guarantee the output is 100% correct because our automation is done by conditional logic. So artificial intelligence was used to analyse a lot of data that we acquired on the production of legal contracts. And from that, we could look at the workflow and we could look at those pain points that lawyers were going through during that drafting process. And then we extended that further, not just in drafting, but all the way from instruction taking through to e-signature and finalising a legal matter. We do use artificial intelligence. There's some bells and whistles and there's some additional features that have been added to what we do. But predominantly it's a robust conditional logic engine that powers the automation.
Well, I guess I hope this isn't a silly or too simple of a question, but with AI being thrown out all over the place, like it means a lot of things for different people. Like when someone's talking about ChatGPT, that means a certain thing. Often there's machine learning thrown in there. So when you talk about conditional logic, can you talk us through, just for everyone here, why is that the structure and what are you building from that?
Yeah, sure.
What are the opportunities?
It's rule-based, so we're taking expert knowledge. If you think about the head of a legal firm, he might have been running a specific type of legal matter for 30 years. He knows intuitively what needs to be done next to get the desired output. But that's not replicatable. Unless he's actually sitting there running a legal case, he can't guarantee what the output is. Our system can take the decision-making process out of his head and put it down into a replicatable rule-based system that anyone using our system will come out at the same result just by the questions and answers that get asked along the way.
Perfect. And I guess one of the things that I'm curious about, and a lot of people I hear ask this question, like how far is it going to go? Like, so when you're replacing that CEO, when you're replicating that CEO's ability to output that work, how far is it going to go? How long do you need that human in the loop, as they say? Like, where are we going to get to with the types of work that's possible?
I'd only be guessing, and the same as everyone else, I think artificial intelligence is definitely here to stay. It's changed the world already, and it will continue to change the world. I think we've really only seen the tip of the iceberg. I was telling people early on that I don't think there'll be any industry that is not affected by artificial intelligence, and I predict that it's not only going to be as big as the internet, I think it's going to be as revolutionary as the invention of the pencil.
Wow. How do they get those leads into that wood anyway? There's a question for everyone.
Very small drills.
Coming back to your own kind of experience as you're building out Tensis and growing it, in this brand new space and everything's there, what are some of the challenges that you've been discovering that you had no idea were going to pop up when you first came up with this or started working on this in 22?
I think every day is another challenge. I think the day you stop challenging yourself and stop overcoming adversity is the day that you start going backwards.
Yes.
I actually look forward to those challenges. I look forward to those things that are going to pop out of nowhere. It keeps it interesting. It keeps you thinking on your toes, and I guess you really need to learn to trust your decision-making abilities, and when you decide on how you're going to tackle something, you go all in.
Have there been any, can you share any moments that had you like just go, that's really interesting, I hadn't expected that?
I think a very recent one that comes to mind, we're just launching in the UK at the moment.
Okay.
And our growth team had built a beautiful new .co.uk website and were ready to launch, and then someone went, but what about GDPR and what about the cookie disclaimers? And then our chief of growth said, what do you reckon? Launch it, we'll deal with it later. And we dealt with it within a day or two, and I guess things like that, when they pop up, you can't stop momentum just because something comes in the way that could be a roadblock. Jump in, have a leap of faith, and sort it out afterwards. What can go wrong, right?
What could go wrong? Famous words.
I guess it's about embracing risk and having an appetite to accept some forms of risk that you've got a tolerance for.
Yeah, and you're here in the UTS Startups community. What are some of the things that have, I guess, really been valuable to you and to your team? Just being in a community of startups and being in a community of other founders, people wanting to pursue entrepreneurship.
Yeah, great question. Community. I think you answered the question in the question. It can be quite lonely being a founder. Being in a community with other founders, it's like iron sharpening iron. The old sort of water cooler conversations. They're the sort of things that you can have, right? Yeah, nodding going on in the audience. There are other people that are living what you're living, that've been through what you're going through. They're experiencing the same thing or have overcome it already. It's those conversations that you can have and the learnings that you can have from people that have experienced what you've experienced.
Perfect. And, you're in that community, and we've got a small kind of technical community in Australia more broadly. Like, one of the things that you mentioned on your website is having a world-class team. What are some of the, I guess, challenges that you found by operating here in Sydney in Australia, or what are some of the disadvantages? What are the pros and cons? What have you found about how the industry is moving in terms of talent?
I think there's an incredible amount of talent in Australia. Incredible. We really are fortunate. It's been tricky over the last few years because some of the Australian tech giants and some of the internationals who have come in and set up large offices here in Sydney and Australia have been stealing the talent pool. But there really is an amazing group of people here, and that's been my main focus from when we founded the company up until now, has been building the best possible world-class team that I could find. And I pinch myself most days at the calibre of the people that we've been able to recruit.
Sounds like that maybe you've been informed by having that general manager for that company, starting from going on to doing an incredible job.
I think if you can hire someone who can do the job better than you can do it,
away you go.
Yeah.
Away you go. So as you're looking forward to the next couple of years, like what's coming up, or what's on the roadmap for Tensis and for you?
Sure. We're going global. We're going big. As I said, we've built a world-class team. We've got amazing people who have had experience in different areas of the business. So our heads of each department have been involved with, or have built, or have grown, or have launched overseas software. We've got an amazing team. Everyone's focused on the same thing, to build another tech giant. So we're, as I mentioned before, we're launching in the UK currently. Morgan at the back of the room and I are off to London in September. Morgan's going to stay there for 3 to 6 months and get things off the ground. From there, we'll continue to expand.
Perfect. And final piece of ideas. Like if you could go back to 2022 self, or even yourself earlier as you were going through, is there any advice that you take from those times that you'd want to give to people who are thinking about starting their own journey or taking that next leap going forwards?
I think the harder you work, the luckier you get. Hustle every day. Don't let people say no, and don't be afraid to ask. I think a lot of people are embarrassed or a little bit too shy to ask for help, or ask for an introduction, or ask for some finance. Grow your network, nurture that network, be prepared to give, and when you need something, put your hand up and say, I need help. Do you know? Can you advise? People are more than happy to help. And, you know, Australia's been built on the Aussie battler. People love to help the underdog out and help them achieve. So, you know, I think it's in our culture, but sometimes we're a little bit too reserved to ask for help.
Perfect. And any immediate places that people should go? Like obviously we've got the community here, but any specific places that you can think of that someone's starting up either in AI or in this kind of building a tech company space that you can recommend?
I'd go to people like yourself.
That wasn't a setup.
Honestly, find a hub, find a tribe, find some other people in a community where you can ask for advice, where you can get introductions, and especially where it's something that has been professionally organised and is facilitated by a world-class group of people who are here to support startups. And, you know, it sounds like a bit of a paid promotion, but yeah, find people like yourself that you can leverage off and introduce you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. And in a moment, we're going to go to the juicy Q&A. Is there anything else that you want to share about Tensis, or where people can find out more about the business?
Sure. Tensis.com.
Easy. And I think we've got the logo there. So please join me in thanking Steve.
Thank you.
Now, for everyone online, we're going to be jumping off in a moment, but just for everyone, I want to say that this transcript here in the room is being transcribed live by one of our startups. You can see the live transcription, and also if you scan the QR code, you can get live translation. This is from one of our startups, sunflower.ai. So if any of you have been seeing the words going across the top of the screen, that's there, and you can also access a meeting summary afterwards as well. Okay, so just to explain what's been going on. Thank you very much to everyone who's joined us online. Thank you to Steve, and we're going to dive into the online Q&A. Come and join us every single Friday. Doors open from 3:30, and the interview from 4 p.m. for another UTS Startups Confessions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.